Hit and run. A hit and run is probably in the top 5 lamest things that can happen to you. Simpsons hit and run, however, fantastic. Someone hits your car and then doesn't have the decency to pull over and check in on what's wrong. Even more frustrating is to know that you'll probably never get to find out who did it unless you have the army of the internet on your side. A Reddit user named Meatheaded had experienced a hit and run and, frustrated and at a loss, turned to Reddit to try and find some answers with what little evidence he had to offer. When he posted a picture of a broken headlight to r/whatisthis thing, he probably didn't expect as much of a response as he got, as it was kind of an odd question. But some 400 comments later, and Redditors had managed to accurately find the model of the car down to the make, model, and year, and all of this just off of a bit of broken plastic and glass. Meatheaded then took the information and ran it through a database and found a 91 gray Cadillac that had been reported stolen. Meatheaded sent the data over to the traffic crimes unit of his local police department, and were able to corroborate the data to track down the missing car and the suspect. Again, all just on a blurry photo of a broken headlight, which is downright incredible. Not only did they manage to find the car, but they also managed to connect it to a theft, busting 2 crimes with 1 post. Most Reddit posts don't get nearly that lucky. At most, you're getting a few upvotes, not solving a crime. And if you've got a love for scary videos, my friends, let us know. Subscribe to catch more of them every day, twice a day. Let's keep going. Number 4, phone scam. Now, not every crime has to be a grim one. Sometimes it's as simple as helping somebody get out of a scam. In 2019, an anonymous Redditor posted a complaint to the Reddit Bureau of Investigation subreddit, complaining that he had been scammed while trying to sell his phone privately. The Redditor had been in a bad situation, in dire straits, needed some quick cash, and was selling off an old phone to someone he'd met on a local listing site like Craigslist. He met the customer, who asked to meet late at night. Not thinking too much of it, the Redditor obliged, only to have his phone swiped quickly, and when he noticed the money he'd been given, he noticed that it was all counterfeit bills. Frustrated and scammed, he was helpless with no idea what to do. A Redditor reached out to the original poster and helped them track the number that he was given to contact the scammer. They searched through and found that it belonged to a 75-year-old man who didn't quite add up. So they did some more digging, and they found that the man who owned the phone number had one relative who happened to share a name with the scammer. Through more digging, the OP and Reddit discovered that the man had been arrested previously and had a suspended driver's license. Kind of amusingly, the original poster went back to the police with all this new information and discovered that the detectives had copied down the numbers of the scammer down completely wrong, so they were never going to be any help at all. 2 days later, they called him into the station to look at a lineup, and they'd found the phone scammer. His grandfather had been paying it off, and the relative he'd been looking into was the scammer's father. The detectives thanked him for his time, and they charged him with criminal fraud with the intent to deceive. The OP got it solved, he got the phone back, and the scammer got charged. And you got to hear about this story in this lovely video. So, win, win, win. Number 3, hit and run again. In August of 2018, a woman went out for a bike ride and tragically was struck fatally during a hit and run accident. There was nothing to tie a perpetrator to the scene. No cameras, no footage, no security footage. The only evidence that the police had found was a small black fragment of the vehicle that struck the bicycle, but it looked indescribable. Not knowing what else to do, Washington State troopers tweeted out a picture of the fragment in a desperate attempt that maybe the internet's collective hive mind might be able to help them identify anything, since, well, they were plumb out of ideas. The post eventually made its way to Reddit, posting to r/whatisthis thing, and we know from a couple minutes earlier in this video that r/whatisthis thing is really good at identifying random car parts left behind at the scenes of hit and runs. Well, lo and behold, the Reddit intelligence once again took care of the impossible, and within a while, the unlikely hero named Jess Nuts posted that it was part of a headlamp of an '88 Chevy Silverado. The Redditor clarified that he was a Maryland state inspector for years, and part of each of his inspection process was a mandatory headlamp adjustment. So he explained that he has seen a lot of headlamps in his time and immediately recognized what part of the car it should have belonged to. With this tip in hand, it was only a few days later, on August 14th, 2018, where the state troopers tweeted out that they were able to make an arrest after Reddit users identified the broken car part, leading them to the driver, who was swiftly apprehended. The driver had been driving very tired, allegedly, and didn't look back after he'd hit someone because he didn't want to see a body. Not really a great excuse. He was sentenced to 4 years. It may not provide all the closure for the family, but thanks to the help of some Reddit detectives, the case was able to be closed and some justice was able to be served. Number 2. Jane Doe. In 2014, Reddit user CallMeIce shared a story about an unidentified set of bones lying in a cemetery in Strongsville, Ohio. The user was researching another cold case at the time, amusingly, and was searching for genealogy records and came across the unidentified skeleton and became very intrigued by the mystery. Why was there never an effort in over 40 years to make an identification as to who these bones belong to? Wishing to right a wrong, CallMeIce posted to r/unresolved mysteries in the hopes of getting some resolved mysteries. The Strongsville Jane Doe, as she was known, was first found in 1975 by 3 boys who were exploring a nearby forest. They found a skeleton lying on a sandbar, mostly intact, but missing some of its jaw. Naturally, the bones were reported, and it was thought to belong to a woman estimated aged 18 to 25 who had suffered a fatal gunshot approximately 5 months before being discovered. Detectives at the time checked her across several missing women cases, but were unable to make any connections or draw up any significant evidence, and the trail went completely cold for decades. Until 2014, when CallMeIce started to look into it. CallMeIce got in touch with the cemetery and managed to get access to the original autopsy files and a photo of the skull. She sent it over to a digital reconstruction artist, who then made up a mock-up. Now, nothing too much happened for a while, until in 2016, the forensic artist who had done the reconstruction came across a listing on the NamUs website, that's the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, of a woman named Linda Pagano, who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances around 1974. She'd come home from a concert and gotten into an argument with her stepfather and supposedly left to go visit her mother, where she was never seen again after. The forensic artist then contacted the medical examiner's office and pulled Linda's dental records, and wouldn't you know it, she matched the Strongsville Jane Doe to Linda Pagano. Although the identity of the attacker was never found, the family was able to find the smallest closure in finally knowing what happened to Linda Pagano, and it never would have happened without a Redditor bringing it back up. Number 1. The Grateful Doe. One of the more notable examples of Reddit solving a cold case was a 20-year mystery as to identify the body recovered from a car crash that was too damaged to be identified. In 1995, a Volkswagen van was found crashed into the trees off of a highway in Virginia. The driver was able to be identified, but his passenger unfortunately wasn't. A pair of Grateful Dead tickets in his pocket led to him being dubbed the Grateful Doe as a pseudonym. For 20 tragic years, the man was never identified, and the case was completely cold, with nary so much as a link. Until a Redditor caught wind of the case and was intrigued by it and opened it back up herself. The user then made a subreddit specifically for this case called r/Grateful Doe, and suddenly there was all this renewed interest from the greater collective of people working pro bono to try and find any connections they could. Digital reconstructions of the face, composite sketches, all this. Eventually, this caught the attention of someone who was sent an image of one of the composite sketches and said that it looked identical to his old roommate. After getting in contact with the roommate, he pointed the subreddit into the right direction, saying that the Grateful Doe's name he thought was Jason Callahan. Reddit then tracked down Shannon Callahan, Jason's half-sister, who upon seeing the composite sketch was moved and offered to take a DNA test. The DNA test confirmed everyone's hypothesis, and after 2 decades, an ice-cold case with absolutely no leads was able to be closed, and Jason's family finally got a little bit of relief to know what happened to their missing relative. The subreddit Grateful Doe is still active and now serves as a hub for several other cold missing cases, with others frequently being solved every day.
Kicking off at number 5, Paulette Jaster. In May 1979, a 25-year-old woman, Paulette Jaster, had disappeared from a small town in Michigan where she lived with her mother and 6 siblings after being tormented by her own mental health issues. The family were distraught and searched endlessly for Paulette, but to no avail, left with no explanation as to her ultimate fate. They were left in the dark for nearly 35 years until Sharon Derrick, a forensic anthropologist, journalist was examining old autopsy pictures of an unidentified woman whose body had been buried in a pauper's grave in Houston, Texas. Sometime in January of 2014, Sharon Derrick had received a tip from the internet, a web sleuth who had been scouring a database of unmarked graves and unidentified deaths, when they noticed similarities between the Paulette Jaster missing persons report. After pursuing the lead, Sharon managed to match photographic evidence of 3 distinct freckles on the Jane Doe's face to that of Paulette Jaster, which tragically revealed that she'd been killed in a hit-and-run incident on March 28, 1980. Sadly, Paulette's life had came to an end, but after 35 years, her family could finally grieve their missing daughter. Swinging in at number 4, Jalopnik. Here's an interesting one, and of all places, was solved by Jalopnik, which, come on, is a great word. Jalopnik, an automotive fan forum that has a massive user base of motor fanatics who had their moment to shine back in 2012 following a fatal hit-and-run incident in Waynesboro, Virginia. Tragically, 56-year-old Betty Marcel Wheeler was walking near her home when she was hit by a vehicle and killed. The vehicle had fled the scene, but police had found a part of the vehicle lying by the roadside. Unable to identify it, they posted it to Jalopnik, seeking the aid of car enthusiasts in the hope that it would lead to the prosecution of the perpetrators. And guess what? It did. Within minutes of the Waynesboro Police Department asking the internet for help, several users had already came forward and identified the part as belonging to a Ford F-150, which swiftly led to the arrest of 2 men, bringing justice to Betty Marcel Wheeler and her family. Next up at number 3, Grateful Doe. The unsolved mystery of Grateful Doe had perplexed the internet for years. In 1995, a 21-year-old man named Michael E. Hager and an unidentified hitchhiker were killed in a car accident in rural Virginia. Hager's family were devastated, but no one mourned for the John Doe hitchhiker, as the authorities were unsuccessful in identifying exactly who he was. The only thing to identify him was a tie-dyed Grateful Dead t-shirt, eventually giving him the nickname Grateful Doe. The case went cold. Almost 20 years later, a Redditor named Layla Betts from Queensland, Australia, stumbled upon the case of Grateful Doe using a photographic reconstruction of his face from the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children. Slowly, with the help of fellow internet sleuths, Layla began piecing together Grateful Doe's identity, which eventually led her to being contacted by a guy named Steve, claiming to be the former roommate of the unknown man. Turned out, he was right, and his real identity was Jason Callahan from Illinois, who had gone missing after following his favourite band, the Grateful Dead, on their nationwide tour. For over 20 years, Grateful Doe had remained unknown, but thanks to the hard-working curiosity of the internet, he was finally laid to rest. Coming in at number 2, Abraham Shakespeare. Now, it sounds like great news winning the lottery, right? But you'd be surprised the lengths that people will go to when faced with the green-eyed monster, as is the case of Abraham Shakespeare, a 47-year-old Florida man that won $30 million on the lottery and would ultimately end up murdered and buried in a shallow grave. After collecting his winnings and paying off his family's mortgage, Abraham was approached by a woman named Doris D.D. Moore, claiming to be a financial advisor with the intention of helping Abraham manage his newfound wealth. Well, her real intention was to take the money for herself, and after months of lies and deceit, she shot Abraham twice and buried him under a cement slab. For months, local police suspected Moore as the killer but didn't have enough evidence to convict her. The case got backlogged for a while and was put under the scrutiny of the Web Sleuths Forum, a site dedicated to amateur e-detectives. Well, it gets crazier because during the Web Sleuths probe, Moore logged onto the forum anonymously, compelled to defend her reputation, but didn't take into account that crucial little thing known as an IP address. Web Sleuths co-owner Trisha Griffin called Moore's bluff and submitted the IP data to the police, which ultimately led to her conviction, where she was sentenced to life in prison. Don't browse the forum like that. No. And finally, our number 1 spot, the skull in the bucket. And this is a bit of a roller coaster to say the least, but the perfect example of what one determined internet detective can pull off with enough time on their hands. Back in 2001, a retired trucker named Roland Telfer noticed something weird at Missouri truck stop, an abandoned plastic bucket filled with concrete. Thinking to use it to feed his pigs back home, he dumped the concrete on his farm, but it wasn't until months later, when the concrete had crumbled away, that he realised what it really was. a human head. Eventually it turned out that it was the head of Gregory May, a 56-year-old tattoo artist that was murdered in 2001 by his best friend Douglas De Bruyne over May's incredibly rare Civil War memorabilia. What followed was a tragic, intricate tale of murder, but De Bruyne couldn't be tried for one simple reason. At the time, the skull wasn't verified to a person, and without a body, De Bruyne couldn't be connected to the murder. Now enter Ellen Leach, an amateur internet sleuth who went to arduous lengths in connecting the skull to that of Gregory May, and eventually provided enough evidence to tie the two together, resulting in the conviction and life imprisonment of his killer. Great job, Ellen.
In at number 5 we have Grateful Doe. After a fatal car crash in 1995, there was an unknown body found in the wreckage, and this John Doe was wearing a Grateful Dead band tee. People eventually forgot about the case and was deemed unsolvable. The Grateful Doe was an American man who was hitchhiking when he was picked up by 21-year-old Michael Hager, but unfortunately Hager had crashed his van into a tree, and the two men were killed in the accident on June 26, 1995 in Greensville County, Virginia. The unidentified hitchhiker was an American man estimated to be between the ages of 15 to 21 years old. He had brown eyes with long curly brown or dark blonde hair that had been dyed red. There was a star tattoo identified on his upper left arm, and he was found wearing a Grateful Dead t-shirt on as well. Investigators had found Grateful Dead tickets in the young man's pocket dating June 24th and 25th. Due to the severity of the lacerations on the unidentified victim's face, mortuary photographs were not released to the public, although a facial reconstruction was later released. In 2012, another facial reconstruction was created by the National Center for Missing and Exploited People. The man who had originally sold the tickets found in Callahan's pocket did not remember the person to whom he had sold them. At least 221 missing people were ruled out as possible identities of the victim. Investigators exhausted all of their resources, questioned everyone they could, and the case eventually went cold, and his body remained nameless until 2015. A woman by the name of Layla Betts, a Redditor and Grateful Dead fan, came across the case and began researching and posting what she had found online. The case soon went viral thanks to Layla, and she was soon contacted by one of the Doe's former roommates, who helped her put together pieces of the puzzle and tried to solve the case. Layla found out that Doe's real name was Jason Callahan, and finally this case was solved after so many years. Coming in at number 4 we have the Hotel Zaza photo. In 2013, Reddit's internet detectives swarmed a subreddit for Houston, Texas, after a user by the username Joe Likes Music posted a mysterious thread asking insiders what the deal was with a bizarre hotel room at Hotel Zaza. Right when you walk in, it's not a welcoming room with the sinister paintings hanging above the concrete floor, what looks like a two-way mirror next to a bed that was chained to the wall, and a portrait of Stanford Financial Group president Jay Como, overlooking the whole room. Joe Likes Music's work colleague had booked room 322 and was supposedly told that that certain room wasn't meant to be booked at all, and I can see why. Rather than just saying, oh, it's just a weird themed room, the internet did what it does best and speculated wildly about the contents of the room. Some commenters thought the room numbers corresponded to the Skull and Bones secret society, while others assumed that the whole thing was a marketing scam. Vice got wind of this story and tracked down someone from the hotel to get these Redditors' questions about this creepy hotel room finally answered. Cryer Coots, the Houston Hotel's head of e-marketing, brought light to some unanswered questions about the themed rooms and weird paintings. Coots stated that, like the other themed rooms Zaza prided itself on, the Hard Times room is just a kooky take on yet another theme, jail. Coots also said the Zaza collection started in Dallas, where our first property was built 10 years ago. Our owners and president were really the visionaries and pioneers behind concept suites, so when the Hotel Zaza Houston opened a few years later, they continued with the same conceptual design. Vice had brought up the theories about the odd 322 room, and Coots states the building was built almost 100 years ago, so when Zaza came in they wanted to use the existing structure. They didn't want to manipulate anything for design purposes. As a result, there are a couple of rooms throughout the property that are more compact. For 322, the idea was just to take a fun, unique spin on a jailhouse experience. So it has an exposed brick wall and a bed hanging from the wall with chains. It's just a fun way to decorate a small space. So there you have it, another mystery solved by Reddit users and internet sleuths. In at number 3 we have 11BX1371. In early 2015, a dark and mysterious video popped up on YouTube, and a Swedish tech blog blog that created a web mystery, and Reddit users wanted to solve this odd discovery. This video was in black and white and 2 minutes in length. It depicts a person wearing what appears to be a plague doctor costume, walking and standing around an abandoned building with a forest visible through the former windows opening in the wall behind it. This creepy video was also accompanied by a soundtrack of loud buzzing noise, and the masked figure holds up a hand with an irregularly blinking light. The film did not have any credits or any claims to ownership, and also contained many commonly used ciphers and encryption messages found hidden in the video and its sound spectrogram, as well as images of tortured and mutilated people. This creepy video soon went viral, and Reddit users started to try and figure out more about this mysterious video. Most of the messages were decoded by participants in an ongoing Reddit thread, and the images sourced to notable murder investigations such as the Boston Strangler. These videos have been interpreted as implying a threat of bioterrorism against the United States, although it has also been speculated that the video is in reality a prank, a viral marketing stunt for an upcoming film or video game, or even a student film. Many were trying to find the origin and creator of this odd film, and it was found that John Erik Kreibleichler, the founding editor of the Swedish tech blog Gadget ZZ, received a DVD in the mail of this mysterious video on it, and when he couldn't decode the video, he posted it in his blog. John Erik wasn't the first to make this video public. Internet sleuths soon found a user account identified as AETBK, who had posted it to YouTube. The account only posts on the site. When this video gained traction, this AETBK was identified as Daniel from Spain, and he claims that he was sent this video from a woman he didn't know, who told him that she had found it on a park bench. Another earlier version of the video was found posted on the paranormal website 4chan. 3 months after it was released and the most of the hype died down, a guy named Parker Warner Wright spoke to the Daily Dot, claiming how he was the guy who created the video. The Daily Dot published an interview with Wright. He told reporter Mike Weiner that he was a US citizen who lives in Poland, and that the videos were meant as an art project. After finishing the video in May 2015, he had left 3 copies, 2 on discs in a subway and park in Poland, and the last one posted to 4chan. Without these curious Reddit users, this mystery may have stayed unsolved, and the true origin of the video would never have been known. In at number 2 we have Webdriver Torso. In 2014, online sleuths noticed that a YouTube account called Webdriver Torso was uploading with insane regularity, yet none of the videos seemed to make sense. The videos were varied in lengths and consisted with a lot of beeping. Theories about the channel's purpose varied wildly, with some even speculating that it was a government sending encrypted messages for the sake of espionage. However, a now deleted Reddit account had gotten to the bottom of the mystery, linking the channel to YouTube's parent company Google. Google actually eventually responded to the mounting speculation surrounding Webdriver Torso, explaining that the videos were used to determine to what extent the technical quality of videos had suffered when they were uploaded to the site, when compared to the originals. Created by Google on March 7, 2013, the channel began uploading videos in September of the same year, consisting of simple slides accompanied by beeps. It was brought to public attention in 2014, when it became a source of speculation for viewers who discovered it and noted 3 atypical videos featuring jokes, and that's when Reddit came across this and started trying to crack the case. The channel stopped posting videos at its same rate after 624,774 videos as of May 2017. The channel posted a few more videos in May, August and October 2018, followed by uploads in July and October 2019. The channel once again posted a video on November 22nd, 2021. Also, if you search Webdriver Torso into Google, the logo will begin behaving in an odd and mysterious shape-shifting manner. Now that the Reddit thread is deleted, leaves mystery in what Google was really trying to do with these videos, or if there really is a true sinister reason for these videos. In at number 1 we have the identity of the Strongsville skeleton. Back in February of 1975, 3 boys exploring the local woods in Strongsville, Ohio came across a skeleton and immediately contacted local authorities. The police were only able to determine that the cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head, and that the body belonged to a white woman around the age of 20, but nothing more was known about this Jane Doe. After the case went cold in 2015, an amateur genealogy researcher was searching through cemetery records in Cleveland when she discovered a listing for unknown white female bones. The woman named Christina Skates began investigating the case herself and uploaded her findings to r/unsolved mysteries and another online forum called Web Sleuths. From there, an artist named Carl Koppelman created a reconstruction of what the deceased woman may have looked like based based on images he had seen of the skull. The reconstruction started gaining traction, and similarities were made between the Strongsville Jane Doe and a local Ohio woman named Lena Pagano by Carl and law enforcement, which led to her identification in 2018. DNA testing would confirm that the unidentified remains were in fact those of Linda. Linda Pagano was a woman from Akron, Ohio, who had been reported missing in 1974. She had an argument with her stepfather and left home, never to be seen again. Thanks to Reddit and web sleuths, this case was solved and the Jane Doe was finally identified, and the case could finally be closed after more than 40 years.